Hello, welcome back to A Story to Score. Let's move on to another broader area, that is polity and governance. Now, that's straight away from your GS paper 2. So, whatever you study about our constitution and the working of government and the governance and initiatives, every information can be put into good use here. So, almost every year, like the case of development, you may get a question from polity. Sometimes it could be a very broader concepts like leadership, and sometimes it could be something more specific related to justice or things like that. When there is broader concept, don't stick to India alone. You could get examples of leadership and things like that from across the globe. So, study your GS paper 2 well, and half the job is already done. So, most of the topic to begin with, you may have to give an example of a real person and a situation. For example, let me take this question. Character of an institution is reflected in its leader. So, for that, you need to take up the example of an institution builder. So, one name which suddenly comes to my mind is that of Verghese Kurian, who created Amul. So, Verghese Kurian as a person made Amul as the taste of India as its tagline, and even after his death, Amul is continuing with that legacy. So, that character of an institution reflected in its leader, that could be a apt example. Similarly, there was a broader question. There are better practices to best practices. That means there is always scope for improvement. So, for that as well, you could bring examples from different fields. For this better practices and best practices, you don't need to stick to the governance field alone. You could bring in it from different fields like sports as well. Like while we were discussing this, I was telling to my students about how a person called Dick Fosbury came and changed the high jump as an event. In 1968 Mexico Olympics, he came up with a new way of jumping, and all of a sudden the world record was shattered. After that, everybody started following suit. So, till that point, some other kind of techniques were considered important, but this guy came up with a new thing which was even better than the best. So, when it comes to broader areas of leadership, you could diversify, and any other examples can be used. Sometimes you have to look into the corporate world and come up with examples from there. Say for example, a person like Ratan Tata, how he built his empire. So, such examples can be used when it comes to this leadership and other kind of things. If the question is a little bit more specific, you could try to bring in more examples from the, world of administration. So, you could use a lot of real example. Again, I am suggesting Better India as a proper source of this, because they always come up with the best administrative practices. If you Google, you will get the compilation of the, Government of India's best collector awards. So, that will give you an insight about the best practices, because the Government of India have similar programs, but how best they can be implemented. So, such kind of examples of people who actually were able to implement the Government of India programs like Swachh Bharat or Safe Motherhood or any of that initiative, that can be put as a good introduction for governance related topic. So, for this topic, you don't need to read extra per se, but to add more examples, make use of this kind of websites, and of course the general magazines like Yojana and Kurukshetra. Other than that, you will be able to do a decent job from your studying of general studies, especially paper 2 for your mains. And most of the people, I think, take up topics from this particular segment because most of the areas are covered in your GS and you don't need much of extra reading. But to make it interesting, use all these examples. So that's all for governance, and see you next week with another topic. Thank you for watching.